Perfect. We're going to switch over to my telephone, okay? Thank you. I'm coming off the tie line now. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Santita. I'm going to go ahead and connect you to the board now.
Perfect. Thank you.
At Crenshaw, was pending. The country singer Larry Gatlin said he'd come to the lead background check to be assessed as the right.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Senate Republicans blocked the domestic terrorism.
Perfect.
Oh, no. I didn't hear Pastor Williams.
A bipartisan group.
I'm here.
Okay, how you doing?
Yeah, how are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good.
Okay. Well, bless you. You know, honey, we're all trying to figure a lot of things out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear your voice this morning.
In Pennsylvania,
Needs some good news. Need it.
Give you our daughter.
Okay, so let me do
Russia-backed rebels in eastern Ukraine say they
that. That. I'm talking to myself, trying to get all this last minute, whatever done. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those. Just trying to pull my last bit of whatever together. And I'm gonna give me a good day to give you a call in the coming days, okay?
Sure. Monday's good. Tuesday's good.
Okay, I will do that. I will do that. Okay. Let me see. Yes. Okay. All right, my dear sister, I'm sending you much love. And I've got a little bit of breathing space. Oh boy, I was supposed to be in New York today.
Really?
Yeah, you know what? It came up kind of suddenly, but one of my coworkers at another job, one of my coworkers is COVID positive, so I had to put the kibosh on that, you know, to try and make sure I tested negative.
Yeah.
You know, you can't even get upset with people because it's airborne, it's out here, it is what it is, you know. So I'm just glad. I'm glad he doesn't have like a horrible case of it, you know.
Yeah.
Because after that, it's like, honey, I'm just glad you're okay.
Side effect is about the same.
but it restricted my activities
30 seconds.
this week, you know. Well, you know, I just couldn't come to New York. That kind of hurt me, girl. You know, New York is my other home. I know. They're debuting a documentary on Miss Clack. That's what I was coming up there for. It's going to be out next year in the United States. So.
Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, Friday, May 28th, 2022. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Also on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show. Please, everybody, join Andre and Linda over there. Mark, can you get on over there from DC? And hey, Zeus, how you doing, sweetie? And oh yes, I did know I was live. Hey, Zeus, I kind of bring you all into kind of the background. You'll even see us during the commercial breaks. Thank you, sweetie. Daryl and Lee Michael and Louie Chewy and Kenneth D and Samantha. I hope that you all are having a great holiday weekend. I hope you're ready for it. And of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's my official page, everybody. That's where you can hear me. We're going to be examining, as so many people in the media are, the police response to what happened in Uvalde. Because the reports are conflicting, and they had a press conference yesterday, law enforcement officials did. And it really, not only was it confusing, it conflicted with the accounts of parents, many of whom lost their children. And we need to talk about that today, because when you look at the mistrust and distrust of our institutions, this is what you see. I mean, some parents, there's video of parents being physically restrained, handcuffed, held to the ground as they were begging law enforcement officials to go into the Robb Elementary School and save their children. One mother who had been physically restrained, who was let out of physical restraints, cuffs, because she knew some of the police officers, they let her go. Then she kind of snuck around, went on past them, hopped the fence, and went into the school and got her children. The back door was unlocked of the school. There's just a lot going on. What happened? We thought that Salvador Ramos encountered a security guard before he went into the school. It's a different account. The accounts are very different. So we're going to have LaTanya Ruffin, who's running for Cook County Sheriff, to talk about police procedure. We're going to have Robert Patillo, who's actually trained in that area, talking about it. We're going to have a congressional candidate, Jonathan Jackson, on to talk about a statement that he released on gun violence. And Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Dr. Max Wolf is going to be with us as well. We have a lot to talk about today. And of course, Dr. Shanina Knighton, and some good news from Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. Every day I'm going to dedicate the show to Joe Garcia. Who is he? He's the husband of Irma Garcia, who with Eva Morales, two of the teachers who were killed, two of the 21 people who were killed at the Robb Elementary School. She and her husband, Mrs. Irma Garcia, and Joe Garcia were sweethearts from their childhood. And they had been married 24 years, had 4 children, the youngest of whom, I've heard different reports, the child is either 12 or 13, a baby. And 50 years of age, he had gone to lay flowers as in memoriam to his wife. And his nephew reports to the New York Times that when he came home, he sat in his seat and just slumped over, and he died of a heart attack. You all know it's a broken heart. This is what happens to these people. There are a lot of broken hearts in Buffalo. There are a lot of broken hearts in Uvalde, Texas today. Lots and lots and lots. And there's a lot of mistrust. What happened with the police? Why are the stories conflicting? But, let's think of the Garcia family today. There's a GoFundMe page for them. They've raised, according to NBC, $1.8 million, but no amount of money can replace Joe and Irma Garcia to their children, to their nieces and nephews, to their loved ones. No amount of money. Think about that as Ted Cruz walks away from a British reporter who said, okay, American exceptionalism, I get it. But why is this only an American problem? He walked away instead of answering the question. So the Garcias, let us keep all of these people in our thoughts and prayers today. Everybody in Chicago, it's cooling off. It's going to be rain today. 59 degrees will be the high. 77 degrees, though, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You go, Minneapolis, St. Paul. 77 degrees and sunny. The Dow closed up 516 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 305 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 79 points. We are getting closer to the NBA championships, everybody. The Warriors closed it out last night against the Mavericks, 120-110. They won their series. They're headed to the finals. Will the Boston Celtics close it out tonight? We don't know. They lead their series 3-2, over the Celtics. We will see. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, in hockey, the Hurricanes lead their series 3-2. Well, and they won 3-1 last night over the Rangers. We'll see if they will close it out over the next couple of days. Edmonton won their series 4-1 in overtime, everybody. The Oilers 5-4. Wow, what a victory over the Flames. And tonight, the Avalanche will be playing the Blues. Colorado leads that series 3-2. Will they close it out? We will see. In Major League Baseball, the Chicago teams got creamed yesterday. My heart is broken. Check this out. The Red Sox 16, the White Sox 7. The Reds, the Cincinnati Reds 20, Pastor Williams, the Cubs 5. Whew. Oh my gosh, my heart is palpitating. The Royals 3 and the Twins were taking down by the Royals 3-2, everybody. Questions remain about the police response to the Texas school shooting. That's at the top of the headlines today. It's really displaced Ukraine as the Biden administration is preparing to approve sending advanced long-range rocket system to Ukraine. Mind you, we are spending $100 million a day in Ukraine, the United States alone. 100. Discussion and debate we're not having because we're talking about these shootings. The NRA convention will be held in Texas, everybody, in Houston, Texas, 2 days. Several notable conservatives, including former President Donald Trump, are scheduled to speak at the meeting, along with Texas Governor Abbott. Now, mind you, the senators are leaving town for their 10-day recess without action on gun violence. What do you think about that, everybody? And what do you think about Governor Abbott going to a fundraiser the night of the killings? That's right, he attended a fundraiser right after the Uvalde school shooting. What do you think about that? What does that say to you? And they're slamming former President Obama for saying, quote, as we grieve the children of Uvalde today, we should take the time to recognize that 2 years ago have passed since the murder of George Floyd under the knee of a police officer, and people are slamming him for that. Unbelievable, everybody. In the meantime, we're seeing video of parents who are really, their claims belie the claims of law enforcement. Law enforcement says, no, we went to the building as soon as we could. It took an hour. So, and at least one of the victims died at the hospital. So in that hour, what could have been done to have saved that child's life? I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this today. Let's talk about where we go from here. And what do you think about Governor Abbott going to a fundraiser after all of these people had been killed? Oh, Reverend Tisha Dixon Williams. Wow. I need some good news today. It's just been a tough week between Buffalo. It's been tough. It's been tough. And then, because I have to tell you, I wasn't happy about the $40 million we sent to Ukraine when all of this pain that we have here. But now we can't even have that discussion, and we should, because we're struggling. We're struggling. But now we're struggling with this. It's a big, big deal. And, and I think that we have a special role. If we want America to be what America's supposed to be, we have to get in there, pitch in, participate, and make these things happen. You have a fabulous book. I see you, sis. I see you, sis. We can get that on Amazon. Yes.
Yes, yes. I see such inspiration from heroic women of the Bible hidden in plain sight. Yes.
Amen. And of course, we had those two teachers, Eva Mireles and Irma Garcia, two brave women who are part of that tremendous tradition. God bless them. Well, you know what? Let's get some good news today.
Great. We have so much going on in the world, and I want to talk today about letting go, the importance of letting go. I am reminded of Psalm 55, where King David is struggling with letting go. He's been betrayed by his friends. He's being usurped by his son. And he reaches out to God and says, my thoughts are troubling. He's going back and forth in this yo-yo of thinking back and forth, overthinking and anxiety and borderline depression because of the hurts and the pains and the things that have transpired that he cannot let go. And I believe that someone is in that position today. But as long as we don't let go, we will never move on. As a pastor, when people come to me with their troubling thoughts, when they come to me with a problem, I don't always have the answers. There are times, even as a pastor, where the things that our parishioners are going through is beyond our capacity, and we may not have an answer for you. Contrary to popular belief, pastors don't have all the answers. And a good pastor will acknowledge his or her limitations. But you know what I can do? I can pray for you. However, prayer is not the only solution, but let me tell you what it does. Praying for you without the ability to solve your problem doesn't make us incompetent or inept. You know what that makes us? It makes us intelligent, because we have sense enough to know that we are not omniscient, but God is. And here's what happens when I go to God in prayer on your behalf. God becomes my board of directors and broadens my perspective. God helps me to see it the way God sees it. God takes the limits off my tiny brain and my limited purview and gives me access to his higher thoughts and puts me in a position to then offer you wise counsel and a solution instead of a temporary feel-good fix. So while prayer is not the answer, I know we're talking a lot about my thoughts and prayers. Prayer is part of the solution, not the only solution. But in order to fix what is broken, even in our country, prayer can't be the only thing that we do. We then have to put some things into practice. And that is what happens when we go to God in prayer. God gives us the solutions so that we may put into practice how to end your troubling thoughts. But then again, that's only part of it. You have to learn to let it go. Because when we refuse to let go and let God, it makes us easy prey. What do I mean, Santita? I'm thinking about the spider monkey. In order to catch spider monkeys, hunters in South America simply walk through the jungle and drop heavy containers on the ground. And these containers have a very narrow top and a wider bottom. And instead, inside the containers, the hunters drop a special kind of nut, which is particularly attractive to these monkeys. And then sometimes later, spider monkeys come down from the top of the trees. They smell the nut, but the top of the container is so narrow, they have a tight squeeze to get their hand inside. And once they grab the nut at the bottom, their fist is too large to remove it through the opening. And the container is too heavy for them to carry. So instead of letting go of the nut, the monkeys just sit there until the hunters come back, pick them up, and throw them in a bag. The spider monkeys are not prepared to let go of a small nut in order to gain their freedom. Who am I speaking to today? Someone is dealing with a stronghold, a snare, and even nuts that God wants to free you from, but you refuse to let go. You refuse to let go of a thought process. You refuse to let go of a person. You refuse to let go of a past hurt. And I know what you're thinking. It would seem obvious that all the monkey needs to do is to let go of the bait and it can escape. But because it views the tree as its possession, it's not willing to let go, and then the monkey is trapped. Some of us are in that same situation. It loses its freedom, and this is a terrible outcome for the monkey. But humans should also be able to avoid falling into the same trap. We should understand the danger of holding on to things that don't serve us well. Stop taking the bait and falling into the trap of past mistakes. Stop taking the bait of anger. Stop taking the bait of guilt. Stop taking the bait of resentment and the need to be right and ignorance and all manner of foolishness. Stop taking the bait and let it go. I just want to give you a couple of things on how we let it go, because I know it sounds easier said than done, but some of us are holding on to a nut that we should have let go a long time ago, even if that nut is a person. Number one, learn to let go. Learn to accept life as it is, even if you don't have everything you want or the life path you desire. Let it go. Learn to build clear barriers around yourself to keep out negativity. Let it go. Learn to live a full and contented life. Learn to have true friends, not just a lot of friends. There's some friends you have to what? Let go. Learn to enjoy your life as it is, not as you think it should be. Let go of pipe dreams and things that are no longer needful and necessary. Let it go. Learn to forgive those who have wronged you. That thing happened 25 years ago. Let it go. Learn to love your body. Don't pollute it, don't degrade it, and don't listen to what other people say about it, even if that's the Supreme Court. Let it go. Learn to create buffer zones that will support you. Learn to enjoy your job, even if it's not your true passion. Use it as a catalyst towards your true passion. Learn to put yourself first. Learn to surround yourself in an environment that's clean and orderly so that your mind might be clean and orderly. Let the clutter go. Learn to let go of the things and people who hurt you. They're gone now. Let it go. And learn to question and request things of people. Learn to let go of this idea that you have to do everything and be all things to all people. And learn the ability to get rid of yourself of those things that you tolerate. Stop tolerating foolishness. Let it go. And lastly, learn to speak the truth. Learn to rid yourself of lies. Let them go. Go for what you want and make it happen. Rid yourself of troubling thoughts. Stop wrestling day and night. Go to bed tonight. You serve a God that neither slumbers nor sleep. So what am I saying in a nutshell? Let it go.
Amen to that. Let it go. And that's the hardest thing for us to do, to let things go and then let God step in and heal you. I was talking about someone who had done something to me that was very, very painful. And this woman is dead and gone to heaven, I pray. I just said, oof, wow. I had to stop myself and say, what am I doing? It's like I got PTSD. I'm going back in time instead of going forward with this gift of grace that I've been given with life, because I've buried a lot of friends over the past year. But I want to ask you this because and Paula, thank you for reminding me about the great Ray Liotta, tremendous actor who died overnight. He just didn't wake up. And I cannot believe it. He was like 67 years of age and one of my favorite actors of all time with those piercing blue eyes. But beyond that, he had such a tremendous body of work. And now he's gone. But I think about Joe Garcia. And thank you so much for that, Paula, because I meant to put him in my headlines, but I just kept on rolling on. The husband of one of the teachers who was killed. And I think of the broken heart. His nephew said he had a heart attack, but he died of a broken heart. I mean, this was his high school sweetheart. They'd been married 24 years. They had 4 children, 23 to about 12 or 13. And, they said that she was really the light of their family, always cracking jokes. The person who, I guess like my mom, the one who lightens things up, because my father's very much an introvert. People don't know that about him. But like most people in his position, his public persona and private persona are too different. They're very, very different. Dad does not have a lot to say. My mother has a lot to say. And I remember when they had COVID together, last summer. They were in rooms that next door to each other, Reverend Williams. And my mother had a really, really tough bout with COVID and almost took her life. And my father had a tough bout, but it wasn't as bad. But every day he just wants to know if could he go to the room with her? Can she and I share a room? And we were like, no, not with COVID, Daddy. You cannot do that. And no, you cannot go in there. Well, and he kept calling, and my mother was struggling to breathe. And she was like, honey, I can't talk to you. I can't even breathe right now. But I thought about that connection because my parents have been together 60 years, basically. And they met when they both had nothing, and you build these lives with people. And I've not been married. I hope to do that one day. But, whatever God wills out is fine with me. But I thought about this man going to the shock of hearing that his wife died. And then Pastor Williams just going home and he just died. In a couple of minutes, what do you say about those who are brokenhearted? That was part of Jesus's mission, right? To heal the brokenhearted. What would you say to the Garcia's children today?
The first thing is I firmly believe that people can die of a broken heart. I firmly believe that. And just the prospect, the shock, the thought of how do I live without you? So I certainly believe that people can die of a broken heart. Honestly, there is nothing I could say to the Garcia children. I think oftentimes that's where we make the misstep. We say too much in times of grief, in moments that require silence. I think that what I would do is just sit with the Garcia children until such a time as they're ready to speak. And I think that's a practice that we have to learn how to engage in grief. It's a tough place to sit in. It's very uncomfortable. It's a tension space, and no one likes to sit in tension. We feel like we have to say something, but in saying something, we often do more damage than good. We use jargon and empty words such as, oh, they're in a better place. No, for the Garcia children, the better place for their parents is with them, touching them in at night, kissing their foreheads, making them breakfast. That's a better place. Or we say things like, I understand. I'm sorry, are you a child that has lost both your parents? One to a broken heart, a cardiac arrest, and the other in a violent school shooting? I think not. There are so many things, so many empty words that we give people, empty expressions that do nothing to help them or heal them. Sometimes presence is the best thing you can say. Speak with your presence. Sit with them. Bring a person food. Hug them. Don't say a word sometimes until they're ready to speak. And I think that's what I would offer the Garcia children and anyone who desires to console them at this time. Something like this changes not only adults, it changes children. And children don't have the maturity level to even begin to grasp this. We don't even have it. And so what I would suggest for anyone grieving at any time, sometimes the best course of action is to say nothing at all. In silence. I'm reminded of the story of Job. When Job was going through all of his afflictions and his friends came to see him, for the first 7 days, they stayed silent. They didn't say a word. They just sat with him. The minute they started talking, everything went quiet.
Well, you're right.
And so silence is often the best thing we can offer.
It's golden. It's golden. Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. What a blessing they have in you. Please go to Amazon and get I See You, Sis. It is so inspiring, so incredible. I love you, and happy Memorial Day. Everybody, oh my goodness, God bless you. Thank you. Let's talk about these police shootings. Oh, you too. Let's talk about these police shootings, everybody. Why is the story changing? And what should be the procedure? Parents were trying to get in, and the police were restraining them physically. One father was even pushed on the ground and physically restrained. Let's talk about it. 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Back in a minute. Pastor Williams?
Every day, teachers are shaping our tomorrow, guiding the students on journeys that will change the course of history. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the minds of inspiring environmentalists who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards
Tanya Ruffins on the line.
Okay, thank you.
of race, income, or physical, and to enable
I can't hear.
of our students, our community, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of.
Okay.
Shape the future.
Can you bring that down just a bit?
Support at peace.org.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's too loud for me to say anything, Paul. Thank you. Thank you so much. Officer Ruffin?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great, doing great, doing great. You see, they've been talking about these changing stories regarding this. And so we're going to talk about that today. And just what the procedure ought to be. Because these parents were trying to get in, and they were physically restrained. And one woman, after she was released from her physical restraints, snuck away from everybody and hopped the fence and went into the school and grabbed her children, who fortunately survived. Yes. Whew, it's a lot. Attorney Patillo, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am so glad that you're with us. We have got candidate for the county of Cook Sheriff, Officer LaTanya Ruffin, with us today. And Robert Patillo is the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. Brilliant, brilliant host, brilliant lawyer. And I'm so glad that he has a little bit of time to be with us today. But he's also, trained in this area. So I cannot wait to talk with you both and CK about this changing narrative here. It's a little distressing, Robert and Officer Ruffin. You know, it continues to change. It continues to change. It continues to change. So, okay. All right. Ms. Ruffin, Officer Ruffin, what are you doing today? I know you're campaigning today.
Well, first of all, I do what I love to do. I start my day, I'm a police officer first.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people I'm not a professional politician, but I'm a professional law enforcement. I'm literally in my car, getting ready to go into road.
In 30 seconds.
Okay, who do we have? Hold on one second.
Just Attorney Patillo and Officer Ruffin.
Okay. Well, let me know when you get. Please let me know when you get.
Attorney Hoffman.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, coming back in 5.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do 50 million things at once. But.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. The Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's talk about Uvalde. I mean, the story continues to evolve. Some people say it's not just evolving, it's changing. It's changing. As we pray for the Garcia family today, who in the space of a couple of days, well, in the space within a week, they've lost their mother and their father. Mother to hasn't been shot at her job as a teacher, and the father, a heart attack. Everyone knows it's a broken heart. What about this evolving story? There was a press conference yesterday held by law enforcement from Uvalde, and it made things, it really brought home a lot of questions. It actually was more confusing than clarifying, and people want to know what happened. Why did it take police um, an hour to get to the scene, to begin to do something? The official accounts have changed. Now more and more parents are saying more could have been done. Parents have, and there is now video from the Texas Tribune and other news outlets that are showing parents who are arguing with law enforcement. And they're saying, hey, go in there. Can you do something? And parents are literally being held, are being restrained by law enforcement. They're getting into fights with law enforcement. One parent was thrown on the ground. Another parent, uh, she was only released from restraints because handcuffs, because she knew some of the police officers, and they said let her go. She snuck away, hopped the fence, and went into the school. The back door was already open to get her children, who fortunately had survived. But there's a lot of scrutiny about what was not done. Gaps and confusion. That is what the Washington Post headline says. Authorities took an hour to stop this gunman. And we first heard that we heard a lot of things. And so before we get to Cook County Sheriff candidate, um, Officer Latanya Ruffin, let me go to you, Attorney Robert Patillo. Why don't you give us an overview of what what has happened and how this story has evolved?
Thank you so much, Santita. And as you said, the information is changing even as recently as this morning. So as far as I understand it, at this point in time, it sounds like the individual, Mr. Ramos, got into an argument with his grandmother, shot her in the face, left the scene in his truck, drove off until crashing the vehicle. Now, one thing that we haven't found out yet is why he crashed the vehicle. Was he on some sort of drugs? Was he in some way impaired? Or was he being chased? Or they haven't explained where the crash, why the crash took place. After he got out of the vehicle, one report said that some people from a old folks home who were across the street, and he fired shots at them. Then he proceeded towards the elementary school. One report says that he started firing shots at the elementary school prior to entering it. Initially, they said that there was a security guard at the school who engaged him. Later, they said that did not happen. At this point, police had already been called. I think they arrived about 4 minutes later. And at that point is where the story starts to get a lot more murky because from what I understand, the local police did arrive, and then they set up a perimeter to try to contain the situation. So for the people saying, well, why didn't they just run in there? You have to assess the situation first. You have to find out how many people are involved. Is it one person? Is it 10 people? Where are they located at? What exactly the weaponry is, and try to cordon off the area. At some point, Mr. Ramos enters the classroom. And so some reports say that he barricaded himself inside the classroom. Some people say the police barricaded him inside the classroom. That's the point that I think we need to get more understanding of. And so at this point, they're waiting on Border Patrol to show up. Just because they have the type of weaponry, they can actually go toe-to-toe with this individual, as well as SWAT team to show up. So they established a perimeter around while they're waiting for additional law enforcement resources. And so some reports say that the police who did arrive started to take their own children out of the school before trying to get Mr. Ramos out of the school. Now, that did occur. That is absolutely beyond the pale of anything that would be part of training or protocols. for any sort of police training. That's something I've never heard of or seen. Would be you have to fire basically the entire department if that took place. At this point, parents begin to arrive. It's a small town, and they hear what's happening. And the reason they didn't just let the parents go in there and get their children, because one thing you do not want to have is even more confusion at this point. So having hundreds of parents storming into the school to grab their children and storming back out could make the situation significantly worse very quickly, particularly if there were multiple suspects in unknown locations throughout the building. Additionally, on this question, well, why didn't they just storm in there? At this point, they haven't said yet, but I'm assuming they didn't know if it was a hostage situation or if it was a mass shooting situation. And if it was a hostage situation, you want to try to de-escalate it and negotiate with the individual before they start killing hostages. So there are protocols in place for it. It sounds like many of them were not followed during the course of this. And of course, I don't think anyone anticipated someone being as sick and evil to simply start executing children. And as a result of that, it wasn't until the SWAT team Customs and Border Patrol showed up that they did, and they started hearing the gunshots after about 40 minutes to an hour, according to some reports. So they did finally enter the classroom and kill Mr. Ramos. So it sounds like there were breakdowns on every level. There are procedures in place to begin to make this make sense. But I think the most concerning aspect would be if law enforcement didn't even remove their children before helping other children. That's something that will require action by the local community. And I think that should be the most disturbing part of this conversation.
Attorney Robert Patillo, the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, also host of his own show on WAOK, the iconic Atlanta talk radio station, every Sunday from 1 to 4, but he's been holding it down all week, and I know the audience has had a treat because you are absolutely brilliant. We've got Cook County Sheriff candidate, Officer LaTanya Ruffin. I am so glad I was able to catch you before, as you've been in the midst of your busy day, because it actually began several hours ago. Talk to me, because, we have been looking. I mean, this is what you do. This is what you do. When you look at these, when you hear the reports, when you hear your fellow officers, when you hear the story change, the story that their spokespersons told, and you hear the story change, not just evolve, but change. Well, no, actually, this didn't happen, but that did. And you have parents who are actively contradicting them now. They're saying, wait a minute, no, you all would not go into the building. So we were going to go into the building ourselves because our babies were in there. What do you make of that, Officer Ruffin?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. And Attorney Patillo, you are absolutely right. There was too many protocols broken here. First of all, there should not have been no police officers allowed to just get their children. We are trained to serve and protect. If you went into that school, you should have grabbed every child, not just your child. And my understanding is that you wasn't allowing parents to go in. You're right, you're supposed to assess the situation. But luckily that one parent, the cops knew, they allowed her to go in. Let her go, and she ran in and grabbed her children. There was so many protocols broken here. We are trained to have different, to go into these schools, training exercise when things like this happen. And these school shootings didn't just start. We've had several school shootings, and the training must start all the time. I was at a school yesterday. We have police officers everywhere just to protect those babies. That was unacceptable yesterday. I think the community has the right to be upset. The community has the right to be upset with the police officers. They have a right to come after them. This is unfair what they did yesterday. I'm in an agreement with those parents, and I'm willing to go down there myself. We want to fight for them. As a professional law enforcement, the training went out the window. It was, to me, about instead of coming together where we're trained to serve and protect. I'm appalled. I'm upset. I have tears in my eyes for those babies because I'm a grandmother of 3 girls, 5, 9, and 2. My heart could not take it. And then the school teacher, husband who had a heart attack after. This is unacceptable. As a law enforcement, they did not follow any protocols of that incident yesterday. So it should be something done about it. They should protest, of course, not radical, but everyone should be heard. They should get more involved. We should hear more about this story as it continues to change. Here in Chicago, they have training exercise. I believe it should be more because the school exercise, but to the active shooter, it actually happened. You have to think differently. You have to really, the exercise got to really come to play now. You have to act. I believe those officers should have went into that school knowing his story. He shot his grandmother. He got in a car accident. He was able to run into the school. He was able to barricade. It's just too many conflicting stories. Until they get to the bottom of it, we should all speak out.
You know, it's very dangerous, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push and immediate past president of the National Bar Association, for there to be this level of mistrust. I mean, this happened on Tuesday. We just saw this conflagration really erupt yesterday on the public stage, although people were asking questions on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, you just have parents who are saying, no, the law enforcement, they're not telling the truth. Ow. Sending much love to you, Vanessa McNaughton. Not only is she my soror from Howard University, we were in kindergarten together. Kindergarten, high school, and Howard. Love you, girl. Talk to me. What does this say to you? I mean, and do you think, are lawsuits coming, or is this just something even more fundamental than a lawsuit? I mean, like, it's just a breakdown of the public trust in an institution that we need so much.
Well, good morning, Santita, and to our panel, especially to the listeners. It's all of the above. There's no question lawsuits are coming. No question. Why? Because there are, and we don't know the timeline, but the timeline is changing by the second. But one thing we do know is there was one parent that was allowed to go in and rescue her children. And look, please understand, thank God she was able to rescue her children.
Oh, yeah.
So please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But if there was one parent that was allowed to go in and other parents were precluded from going in, and those parents sat out there and heard gunshots and didn't see the police going in, or if they saw the police going in, they saw them going in and rescuing their own children, that is a huge lawsuit. It will be not just a little big mammoth of a lawsuit, because that is not only, as your guests have already said, a breach of protocol, but that is gross negligence. And we understand here when in a situation like this, you want to save your child. Yeah. So on the one hand, I'm not really faulting a law enforcement officer whose child was at that school, right? Because there were some law enforcement officers who I've seen on TV who lost their children. Absolutely. So there was mass chaos, but there's got to be protocols that are followed because the public is trusting law enforcement to do what's appropriate. They've been trained at this. School shootings are so commonplace, just as your expert said, they are trained at this on a regular basis. So to the extent that there are inconsistent applications of the policy, that's problematic. And on the face, it appears that's the case, number one. Number two, to the extent that the police, and they do have to have time to assess and triage and determine and figure out what's going on, but it does seem like there was a long period of time, although there appears to have been some activity early on in trying to contain him, and they were met with gunfire. Well, let's assume all of that is the case. My concern is that when they sort of breached the protocols and allowed some people in and some people they didn't, the parents are hearing the gunshots, they're seeing this these inconsistencies, I think that each of those parents who lost children, they have a viable cause of action against the police department, all of the place. Potentially the school. Let's talk about security. Was there a breach of security? Was it something that the school had noticed about? There was a lot of information in the public. This guy, these shooters, they want everybody to know that they're the ones who did the shooting. They want to show off. They want to be a Kyle Rittenhouse. They want to walk down the street. They want to have people notice them because they're feeling some kind of way. They're feeling neglected, bullied. And they want to finally get their say and have the world know that they did something. So usually it's on social media, as in the case on any Buffalo shooting. So there was a lot of notice. What happened with that notice? What did they know? More importantly, what should they have known? And did they ignore the signs, the clear signs that were in the public domain? So, yes, many lawsuits, each of those families. Firstly. Secondly, also breach of public confidence.
Okay, Attorney Hoffler, you're going out. You're not sounding as clear. I want you to, okay.
Okay. Breach of public confidence also, without a question, but there's a breach of public confidence across the country because of these shootings happening. Now we're seeing back-to-back shootings. And by the way, there are a lot of shootings that are not reported, such as the shooting that Dr. Knight talked about in Cleveland. I didn't hear any press on that. There was very little press about the shooting in Washington, D.C. on Van Ness down the street from Howard Law School, where there was an active shooter just trying to pluck off people at a school. He was a bad aim, so he didn't kill anyone, but he was just shooting from his window, from his apartment. All of these things are happening, but there's not very much coverage. But more importantly, the public has no trust in law enforcement as it relates to their ability to contain or to address a situation like this. And I think at this stage, and Texas has really, really proven on people's greatest fears.
Well, which brings me back to Officer Ruffin. Speak to that. I mean, you are running to be the sheriff of Cook County. This is one of the largest. It has one of the largest budgets in the world. I mean, this is a huge government here, and this is a huge national problem. It's a national problem. You saw Senator Ted Cruz was confronted by a British reporter. He said, "This is an American problem. All around the world, we're looking at you all, and we're going, what is going on in the USA?" What kind of is there rotating, revolving, shall I say, training with your officers, with your fellow police officers, with sheriffs, with law enforcement officials to deal with a situation like this? Because sadly, Officer LaTanya Ruffin, this is not unique. This is now commonplace.
Right. So yes, good morning, and she is absolutely right. This is unacceptable, and there should be tons of lawsuits. Right now, I don't see the sheriff doing training for these schools. We have a lot of schools. That's why I decided to run as county sheriff for the change. It will be the second largest in the country. This is unacceptable. You must have consistent training all the time, not once a year, not twice, because the public's lost faith in the police officers. And the sheriff supersedes the police. So the sheriff can get more involved. We need to stop politicking and save our country. We got to save our people. We can't continue no more school shootings. When is it going to be enough is enough? It's unacceptable to me. I want to fight for the people. I want to bring change. This is unacceptable. I am a grandmother, and I don't like it at all. And Texas should be dealt with it, and they fail all protocol to serve and protect. And that's why we have to have change, and we got to bring faith back into the community. It's gone. We got to do something, and if the top, it starts at the top. If they're not doing something, we're in trouble. Well, you got to change the top.
Something is.
I do my first job first. I'm a law. I got to get to roll call.
Okay.
But thank you for having me on here and I'm about to change, and I'm upset about what happened, and I'm going to continue to speak out on this. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to get to roll call and start my day and protect these children on any means of necessary. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I mean, Robert Patillo, this is like, I mean, ironically enough, President Biden just signed an executive order on police reform. But I mean, this is not something that we were even thinking about. I mean, just the idea that some police officers went and got their children. And you can understand I mean, just the primal instinct to save your child, someone you love. I mean, but wow, Robert, I mean, just the fact that that's even out there to me is very, very, very dangerous. I mean, just the thought of that is not something has broken in Uvalde, because you have parents who are talking to the New York Times and all these other major outlets, and they're saying the police are in effect lying. What does that say? What does that say? I've got a couple of minutes.
Oh, the police are absolutely lying. That whenever a story don't make sense like this, anybody who has had a date with somebody who lies, you can always start poking holes in the story and it deflates like a balloon. So clearly there's going to be a lot more information that comes out. Well, video will come out because everything is videotaped in America nowadays, so there should be surveillance footage from the school. We're starting to see cell phone footage from them, restraining parents and holding them down on the outside. And we also have to look at the fact that in these mass shooting situations, now police are just outgunned. Look at the Buffalo shooter. Yeah. The security guard shot that man twice, and he was simply outgunned by him. And so it won't mean a lot to most people, but for the people who are in the gun community, we found out now that the AR-15 that Mr. Ramos had was called a Daniels defense. So for those folks who don't know, a Daniels is like a Gucci of ARs. The trigger is so light. The whole weapon is literally a piece of art. So we need to find out how exactly he can afford on his 18th birthday to walk into a gun store and buy two of them. That's probably cost around $4,000, not to mention over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. From what I understand, this is unconfirmed, that he had green tips. That probably doesn't mean a lot to people. Green tip AR-15 ammunition, 5.56 ammunition, is military grade armor piercing. I got a couple boxes around just in case. But if he has 1,000 rounds of armor piercing ammunition, two Gucci ARs, body armor on, those police would have walked in there and got slaughtered. It would be a suicide mission. It would be kamikaze to walk in there. So the instinct you want to assess the situation and get back up in there is understandable. That's within protocol. But to run in there and get your own children first, that's just beyond the pale, because that means you are essentially abandoning your job as law enforcement and turning back into a civilian. If you're going to do that, leave your badge on the inside when you go get your kids, because you can only be trusted by the community. And so we also have to look at the way that we're equipping law enforcement. When you now are having cheap body armor hitting the market, I'm not certain that this individual had a Kevlar vest or he had AR-500 plates in. The individual in Buffalo had plate armor. There's absolutely nothing that a 9mm can do to plate armor, particularly if it's level 3A or even level 4 plate armor. A 9mm bullet will generally just pop off, even if it's a hollow point, it just mushrooms. It doesn't even knock the person down. If it's full metal jacket, it just kind of flattens out, and the person keeps shooting at you. So we have to figure out how to get at least one person within a police response team that has the weaponry and the capacity to deal with something like that. So you don't have to wait for SWAT. You don't have to wait for Customs and Border Patrol in order to engage the situation. So it seems like there are systemic failures all the way across the line, particularly in Uvalde, but also the Buffalo shooting, that we're going to need to reevaluate.
Absolutely. We've got to look at this, everybody. We've got to look at this, because now there's gross distrust of the police, and they are being caught in telling falsehoods. Not a good thing. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT and AM 950 Radio and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Back in just a minute. Woo-wee. Wow. I mean, you're sounding like my brother Jonathan. He said, these guys, the police officers are powerless against the guns that are now on these streets. I didn't really realize that. But how did that happen? How did this military grade ammunition, guns, how did the military get into the streets, essentially? We're on Facebook Live now.
Well, there used to be a price wall for the most part on these things. That if you wanted an AR 10 years ago, it was going to run you, $2,000. Now you can pick up a cheap one for $300-400, and you can build one for $200. Green tip ammo, and then even black tip ammo and red tips. So your green tips are your armor piercing, your black tips are your anti-vehicle, red tips are incendiary. Those were almost impossible to get if you didn't have a tax stamp or FFL. Now you can get them at many gun stores, military surpluses, particularly if you go to gun shows where people just have like an excess that they're selling out the back of their trunk. You can get that not inexpensively, but within the range of an individual. Even body armor, which used to be very much, thousands of dollars, if you've got more manufacturers on the market. Something like an AR-500 plate armor with the anti-spalling covering on it. Well, that can take up to a 50 BMG rifle. And if you want to know what a 50 BMG rifle is, that's the one that the military snipers use if they need to shoot somebody 2 miles away. So if you have armor like that just around on the streets, there's not really much that you're going to do with your 9mm Glock. You might as well just throw a pebble at them. So we're going to have to reevaluate exactly how those things can either be regulated or how we can make sure law enforcement has the ability to still engage people. Because at this point, you got folks walking around basically in an Iron Man suit, feeling they can do what they feel like. They're still probably going to die eventually, but they have a lot more time while they're to commit crime during the process.
CK, this is insane. I mean, it's essentially we're unprotected, CK. I mean, I don't know.
No, absolutely, Santita. I mean, I think that's, Robert was talking way over my pay grade.
Hey. Okay. Who do we have on the line?
Just knowledgeable about it.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry, CK. Who do we have on the line?
Jonathan Jackson.
Oh, great. Oh, Jonathan Jackson, CK Hoffler, attorney Robert Patillo.
Hey, Robert. Hey, man.
So what I'm saying is, I didn't understand how Robert said because he's so knowledgeable about it. But what I didn't understand is I don't feel protected.
Okay, you know what? You're a little unclear right now, CK. A little unclear.
Okay. I'm not sure why, but I don't feel protected. I think the public doesn't feel protected.
I feel unprotected. And hey, Tank says CK is absolutely correct. I mean, you're right. I feel unprotected, Johnny. It's unbelievable. As Robert was explaining to us, he was explaining really what these guns do, just how inexpensive it is to get, all of this protective gear, just to buy all of this stuff, and how the streets are now populated with military grade weapons and gear. One has to wonder how this happened and how we're going to get around it. Not to mention the fact that, Jonathan, we started off with the fact that the police have been caught in massive untruths about what happened on Tuesday. And that's been very, very damaging. And these parents are challenging them. And now I think Mayor Castro is calling for an investigation because, the police are saying one thing and the parents are saying, no, you let this go on for an hour. We heard the gunshots ring out for an hour and then we didn't hear them anymore. But before that happened, you would not let us. You didn't go into the building, and then You physically restrained us when we tried to get into the building to save our children. So I really can't wait to see hear what you've got to talk about, Jonathan, going forward. Congressional candidate Jonathan Jackson. Paula said she cannot wait to hear what you've got to say. What a trio. Hoffler, Jackson, and Patillo. Whoops. Jonathan, are you out campaigning right now? I'm sure you're on your way. It's going to rain like crazy today. You know that, right?
Right, I'm sitting home at the bus stop and start off in the morning and make my way to the office and to the senior building events and then campaign fundraise.
Well, sweetie, wrap up tonight. Wrap up today, okay? Because it is raining. Okay?
Yep.
Just so that you
At like 30, 40 degree swing in the wind temperature.
Okay. Oh, it's unbelievable. But that's why you're going to have to, don't be afraid to wear something around your neck. Okay? Just take care of yourself. The Jacksons are a little phlegmatic. We catch colds and bronchitis and pneumonia quickly. So we don't have to be careful. So we're about ready to come back on, Paul?
Coming back in 30 seconds.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, and please bring Chaparral up at the bottom of the hour. Thank you. Linear Bob. Did any of them have Bob? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, May 28th, 2022. On the eve of the Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Sending you much love today. The Santita Jackson Show comes to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. I want you to meet me over on my YouTube channel. Hey, Linear Bob. Meet him and so many others on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And if you want to become my friend on Facebook, please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. We're streaming live there as well. I want to hear your thoughts about what's happening, this investigation, the revelations about Uvalde. What happened there? So many people are now questioning the actions of the police, doubting the actions of the police, and quite frankly, catching them in some, let's say they're not telling the full truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We've got to talk about that today, the damage that the police force are taking. Why did it take an hour? What happened? Who Salvador Ramos? What did he do? He crashed a car. Did he encounter the police before he went into the school or not? I mean, what took an hour? Some of these, at least one of the victims died at the hospital. So one wonders if that hour could have saved this child's life. So let's talk at 773-763-9278. We're joined by special guest Jonathan Jackson, who's running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District here in Illinois, and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Chair of Radio Push, former president, immediate past president of the National Bar Association, and host of our own show on WAOK every Tuesday at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And of course, the host of WAOK's afternoon show on Sundays from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, Attorney Robert Patillo, who's been really breaking all this down for us. Thank you, LaTanya Ruffin, Cook County Sheriff candidate, for being with us today, helping us to understand, giving us an inside view of what happens with law enforcement. Everybody, Chicago's going to be a little cooler today. 59 degrees and rain. The Minneapolis, St. Paul, 77 degrees and sunny. The Dow closed up 516 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 305 points. The S&P 500 closed up 79 points. And wow, we're getting closer and closer and closer to the NBA championships, everybody. The Warriors close out their series against the Mavericks, 120-110. They will be in the championships. But what about the Celtics? Boston leads that series 3-2. They'll be playing tonight. They have a chance to close it out in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Hurricanes lead their series 3-2. They won last night 3-1. Will they close it out? Edmonton won their series 4-1 in overtime. A nail biter, everybody. 5-4. The Oilers over the Flames. And tonight, the Avalanche will be playing the Blues. Colorado leads that series. Will they close it out? We will see. Major League Baseball. The Chicago teams got creamed yesterday, everybody. Oh, I'm praying. Red Sox 16. The White Sox 7. Cincinnati Reds 20. Oh my gosh, the Cubs 5. Whew, I'm about to pass out. And the Twins fell to the Royals 3-2, everybody. Sending much love to the Garcia family today. Indeed, we dedicated the show to them. Who are they? Irma Garcia, along with Ava Morales. They were the two teachers who were killed at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. Well, she and her husband had been sweethearts since they were kids. Married 24 years, parents to 4 children, the oldest 23, the youngest 12 or 13, depending upon the news report that you read. He was 50, and he visited his wife's memorial yesterday morning, and when he got home, his nephew said he just fell over. They said he had a heart attack, but many of us believe that he had a broken heart, and so we're praying for that family. A GoFundMe page has been set up for that family. They've raised, as of yesterday, $1.8 million, but we do know that there is no amount of money that can take the place of the mother and father for those children who lost their mother and father within a week's time, everybody. Conflicting reports from authorities are raising further questions about the police response to this tragedy in Uvalde, Texas. We're going to be talking about that some more as senators in Washington, D.C., are set to leave town for a 10-day recess without action on gun violence. Why only in America? Ted Cruz stormed out of a Texas school shooting interview with a British news outlet. They said, we understand U.S. exceptionalism, but, this only happens in America. What's going on? Ted Cruz stormed out, did not answer his questions. What do you think about that, everybody? Greg Abbott, in the meantime, the Texas governor, attended a fundraiser right after the Uvalde school shooting. You can't make this stuff up, everybody. Call me, text me, 773-763-9278. As we go into this segment, I want you to save your homes, everybody. We're looking for financial freedom, and Team Hochberg can get you there. If you have no credit, if you need to rebuild your credit, if you've got massive credit card debt, if you want to purchase a home, there's a possibility, and there's a roadmap more than that for you to become being a homeowner. If you want to refinance your existing home, secure a VA loan or reverse mortgage, they can help you. So I want you to call them at 855-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. They can help you. January 1st of this year, there was a 30-year fixed interest rate. It was in the low 3s. Now it's in the mid 5s and it's climbing. And now costs over $360 more a month to finance a $200,000 home. Over $540 more a month to finance a $300,000 mortgage than it did at the beginning of the year. And the numbers keep climbing. There is no interest rate relief in sight. That's why you need to work with a lender who understands the market like Team Hochberg. So this is what you do. Call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Let them know what you're going through, whatever it is. They have seen it all, and they have worked problems out for everybody, no matter how dire their circumstances. Go to 56david.com, 56david.com, and check them out on their website. But just call them, 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, and get on the road to financial freedom. Joining attorney C.K. Hoffler, of course. We've seen her on MSNBC, ABC, all over the news because she's Court TV. She's such a brilliant analyst and lawyer. Attorney Robert Patillo, who has been holding it down on WAOK throughout the week. This week, giving brilliant analysis. Of course, he's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, and she's the chair of Rainbow Push, immediate past president also of the National Bar Association. We're joined this morning. I'm so glad that we have, to fully disclose, my brother, someone who I love deeply, with whom I'm well pleased, who's running for the first congressional seat here in Chicago in the great state of Illinois. I want to hear your thoughts about what we're looking at, Jonathan. I mean, it seems that these mass shootings, they're not rare events. They have become commonplace. And now we have all of these questions about the police response to this tragedy. We have video now of parents being physically restrained, held to the ground. They were not allowed to go in, and the police wouldn't go in either. There's just a lot swirling about. Your thoughts about Uvalde?
So, Santita, I think people should realize there have been 212 mass shootings this year alone in America, and mass is defined as more than 10 people shot at a single location. In this month, 4 mass shootings come to mind across this nation, across racial lines, across geography, whether it be a white person killing African Americans at a grocery store in Buffalo, whether it be young African Americans shooting one another in Milwaukee after a basketball game, or in Chicago in the Gold Coast area, or a Hispanic gentleman shooting other Hispanic children in an elementary school in Texas. These are increasing in frequency, and we have to ask ourselves, how can it be prevented? I just saw the comments of former Attorney General Bill Barr, and he commented that 40 years ago, you didn't necessarily have police and security at airports, and now there's police and security at every airport. He envisions a world to stop the shooting, to have more police at every school. I was horrified at that comment. Many of these schools now have metal detectors and have a police presence. Our children are being traumatized with all of this. These are like miniature military brigades. When I hear people saying that you have to lock the doors around a school, I mean, it's going in the wrong direction. More guns are not making us safer. In Texas, where they want to give guns to the teachers, like, what is going on? This is insanity, and no one's talking about it. I want people to understand about the mass shooting. People there did all the right things. You cannot stop a mass shooting. And to think that this 18-year-old could buy an assault rifle at 18 but could not buy a handgun until he's 21, to know that these persons that are buying these assault rifles have more weaponry, more armament, they're outgunning the police department. Can we please have some reasonable and responsible gun reform legislation? And the last thing I want to say is, he bought this gun legally. He obeyed the laws. The person that sold it to him legally. I mean, so we have to get to removing the gun. And I don't want to make this coupling anymore, that this is mental illness. People that have mental illness don't go on and do this. People have schizophrenia, and people have bipolar. They don't act out this way. What's triggering this is the access to guns. You can have those same mental conditions and not do this. This is hatred. This is evil. This is a child that's been bullied. And so I don't want us to conflate those two issues, because mental illness is serious. This is hatred. This is a spiritual decay.
What do you make of Ted Cruz walking away from the Sky News reporter who said, hey, what are you going to do about this? American exceptionalism, you all talk about that, but all around the world, Jonathan, and you and I traveled around the world together and apart from one another. All around the world, people are looking at us and they're saying, this is insane. Le Monde, the iconic French newspaper, a paper that I'm sure CK reads every day, said America is exceptional at mass shootings. Ouch. What do you say, Jonathan? When you speak to African leadership, when you speak to European leadership, Asian leadership, what do you say when you have this?
It is inconceivable. Ted Cruz is a Harvard-trained lawyer. He is very academically sound. He's intelligent, although you can disagree with his point of view. This is sick, and he should be ashamed of himself. He knows he's playing a word game, Smith. I know he doesn't even believe the things that he's saying. It's access to guns is the problem. Ted Cruz knows that he is bought and paid for by the gun lobbyists, and he ought to be ashamed of himself.
He should be ashamed of himself. Where do we go from here, Jonathan? I mean, say you get to Congress, what would you do today? I mean, is there anything that Congress can do? Is there anything, I mean, in both houses? Is there anything that you think leaders in both houses, in the lower and upper house, in the People's House, U.S. House of Representatives, what can they do?
Ms. Shelton, I appreciate your commentary. You all say it all the time. There's nothing new here. Now it's a matter of having the political will to do something about it and to get onto that rotunda, to get on the floor in the halls of Congress and raise the debate. We cannot let these children's memories go aside, and the only way we can keep them alive is that we talk about it, we remember their names, we engage them. I mean, these are mass shootings where? In a grocery store. We saw a mass shooting in a church in Charleston. We saw Kyle Rittenhouse go into the streets during a protest. These people that are perpetrating these crimes are getting younger and younger. And I call myself an advocate. I'm a defender of the children. Even though this is a heinous crime, and this man at 18 years old is also a teenager, I hope we take the time to look a little deeper at what is fueling these teens to this level of violence, what's inciting them. These are teenagers. So the judge has in many cases, the discretion, Patillo and CK can tell you as a teenager, to tell you that the mind isn't fully developed, that they can't comprehend what they've done. So although they will be charged as an adult, these are teenagers that just barely crossed the legal line. We need to open up a White House discussion, and doesn't need to be a long discussion because the history has already been documented. We've got to save a generation of teens. My child is 20 years old. My youngest son, Noah, has seen our nation at war every day of his entire life. This has been bothering me since 1991. Since 1990, we went into Iraq. We've had a military presence abroad, fighting a country in Iraq. Then after we went into Afghanistan, every day of his life, this nation's been at war. Our children don't know any difference. Then they've seen the onslaught of the gun violence that's been taught in Grand Theft Auto, and then they've seen more video games. So if we pour this into the children by way of music and entertainment and by practices of our government leaders, what do we expect? These children are regurgitating the things that they've learned. They're regurgitating the things that have been poured into them. Our society is violent, and we have to be on the floor of the Congress to turn that around.
Amen to that. Closing thoughts from you before you go?
Hey, I want to tune out so I can listen more. Love you all.
I love you. That's my brother, CK. And Robert, how do you respond to what? Well, hold on. I mean, I want them to respond to what they've heard from you. CK.
No, I think Jonathan makes an excellent point. There's so many levels of complexity, but we have to start with gun reform. I mean, that's what we need to do. And we have to start with policing reform. We have to make sure that our police are trained appropriately, because in Texas, we failed on so many levels, in terms of the police, in terms of, the raised issues of gun reform, all of that. In Buffalo, we didn't really have an issue with the police other than them gingerly escorting this person who massacred and decimated the community out and giving him water or whatever. That maybe also begs the question of policing reform. But we just have to start with federal legislation. And then, in addition to that, we have to make sure that we support our grassroots organizations, our civil rights organizations that are on point and pushing this issue through their advocacy. That's critically important. And then also, we got to vote. And make sure you elect people. And I'm just going to say it like Jonathan. People who you're listening to say and who represent and who speak truth to power and who represent the values that we want to see in our elected officials, who we know are going to make a difference. People like Ted Cruz, I agree with Jonathan. He should be ashamed of himself. He knows that. So I think we have to begin to look at who we are voting for. That's going to be critically important, Santita.
Well, you know, elections have consequences, Robert. They do. I mean, and you've got the Senate. They're not going to talk about gun reform. They're about to go on a 10-day break, as if we've not had two horrific shootings. We've got to look at Uvalde, but we've got to continue to look at Buffalo. Those victims have not been buried yet. We just started burying them this week. Please don't forget Buffalo. I mean, how do you walk into a grocery store and kill these grandmamas? I mean, Jonathan has video of our grandmother Gertrude. You know, she used to go to Whole Foods every week. She loved doing that for about 2 or 3 hours. And she picked through the beans as she did when she was a migrant worker as a child. I'm like, what is going on, Robert?
You're absolutely correct. And so, my Aunt Catherine died back in December at 92 years old. And some of my favorite memories of the last few years of her life, she would always want, you don't get out the house a lot when you're that old,
Yes.
Me to take her to the grocery store. And when I was younger, I would just kick and scream and complain, but do it out of obligation. Because, when you're older, you're going to sit there, you're going to look at every single product, you're going to read the ingredients, and it's a 2-hour trip. And, you're trying to get all back out. But now it's some of those fond memories. So the idea of somebody interrupting that level of domestic tranquility for a mass shooting is just absolutely abhorrent. Well, we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time at this point in time. The Republican Party is never going to agree to literally any form of gun control, any form. Just yesterday, they had a vote in the Senate on the domestic terrorism bill in the wake of the white supremacist shooting in Buffalo. You did not get a single Republican to vote in favor of an anti-domestic terrorism bill. And indeed, you still had Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema vote against it. And the vote ended up being 47-47 on a stopping domestic terrorism bill. That's how entrenched these people are. So the real fight has to be, where do you get 12 new senators from in order to make any sort of change? And that has to be the kind of driving cause. You have to look at Pennsylvania, where you have Dr. Oz running. You have to look at Ohio, where you got J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, running for Senate. You got to look at Georgia, where Herschel Walker, the brain-dead woman beater, is running for United States Senate against Raphael Warnock. You got to look at... you gotta look at Val Demings running against Rubio in Florida. You gotta find your 12 senators and get those people elected, because nothing's gonna happen unless that takes place. But then at the same time, you have to start thinking, unfortunately, about how you can protect your own children and your own self in your own home. I highly recommend, I've told people this for years, order yourself a level 3A Kevlar panel and put it in your kid's book bag. I know it's something you don't feel like doing.
That's horrible.
It's about $150. It's about $150, and even if they never use it their entire life, you never know when the never knowing going to happen. And that stops any handgun ammunition up to probably a 5.7 by 28. That can be thrown at them. Rifle rounds, it'll at least slow it down, but it gives them a fighting chance against what's taking place out here right now. So if I had an elementary school-age kid, they would have a Kevlar pad inside their book bag, so they can at least get behind the bag and hope to have a chance against what's out here in these streets. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, but the Second Amendment says to have a well-regulated militia, and that means we have to have regulations. We need to raise the national age to purchase a firearm to 21. You don't need 18-year-olds going out here hunting anymore to feed the family.
Sure.
You can't buy alcohol. You can't rent a car. You can't drive for Uber if you're 18. We need to raise that age.
Well,
background check. So mentally ill. Go ahead.
No. I mean, I've got to run to break, but I hear you. But we have King High School, great prep school, public college prep school here. We've got to look at militarization, the militarization of the culture. They were putting our kids through junior ROTC without their permission. You know, we have places where we have target practice in the lunchrooms in our high schools. Dr. King said the militarization, over militarization of the culture was going to hurt us. Back in just a minute on the Santita Jackson Show. Whew. Oh boy, you can vote at 18. You're right. But it's all uneven. There's some things you can do at 18. There's some things that you must wait until you're 21. Shame. Oh, Robert, keep talking. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm out at 58, just so that you all know. Okay? So I'm going to have you all begin to bring things down at 57. Okay? Oh boy. This is too much. CK, you still there?
Yes, I'm going to have to leave.
Okay. Well, we're going to miss you, CK.
Great. I thought I heard. I'm still speechless with what Robert just said, but
That girl, look. Robert's gonna leave your mouth swinging on the floor like that gaper. No. I know why they want him on the radio. He's gonna say something that's gonna make you go, huh? I love you, Robert.
all right.
Bye-bye. Thank you, CK. Oh boy, Robert, I'm so glad you're with us today. Glad you weren't doing a morning drive today. But we've got Dr. Wolf. Well, it's tough doing it daily. I'm not gonna lie. Dr. Wolf. Hi, how you doing? You just missed Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan, that's Dr. Wolf.
Yeah. What's going on, Dr. Wolf? Not much. Hey, Dr. Wolf, I need your help. I need you and Robert's help to translate for me what Herschel Walker is saying. Yeah. I have a limited neurology background.
Oh. Okay, we're with I'm in the snark factory. Oh, God.
People for some reason think I'm only being hard on Herschel Walker. Anything you say about Herschel Walker, be nice to him. Because you can't describe how unqualified and horrible an individual this is. So I'm going to use every piece of strength I have between now and November to make sure he's not a senator.
There's an article that just came out.
Those head trauma is really personality. I mean, that is some true fact. And it's possible that the fellow isn't altogether responsible for what he's up to.
No, but he had problems before this, before CTE. You know, they said he was a bit of a different kind of bird when he was in high school. But he played high school. Well, he played football all the way through. So, oh, you guys, are you all being snarky or serious?
No, I think it is. There's a lot of people who have, real trauma. But I don't know the life story that well, but the sort of low life deal is pretty consistent. That's come out in the press the last couple months. Yeah, for me, as having family members who survived domestic violence, I can't let a senator get elected who held a gun to his wife's temple or say, not today's B word, or to another woman held a razor blade to her throat. Attempted to kill her, essentially, who choked a woman unconscious, beat another woman into a coma, and then when they asked him back in 15 seconds, so ill that she doesn't remember it.
Ooh. Nice.
I feel like if you beat a woman into a coma, you can't be in the Senate. And for people who say it was a long time ago, the last woman he beat was in 2012.
Huh.
Jackson Show.
Wow. Whew. We've been talking about Uvalde and we're continuing that conversation about Uvalde on Memorial Day weekend, everybody. As we welcome Dr. Max Wolf to the show. He couldn't be with us yesterday, as he normally is. He's with us today. We still have congressional candidate Jonathan Jackson, who's hanging out with us for a little bit, and attorney Robert Patillo. Whew, they are on fire today. As I get to them, I want you to have some good news, some great news from the Oak Park Regional Housing Center. We want you to save your homes, everybody. The Illinois Homeowner Assistance Fund is offering up to $30,000 of free money to pay your past due mortgage, property tax payments, or other housing costs. Past due mortgages, property tax payments, housing costs. If you fell behind during the COVID-19 pandemic when we all had to sit down, they can help you. Go to IllinoisHousingHelp.org. IllinoisHousingHelp.org. Now, you got to go right now because the program ends on May 31st. And we're going to have Athena Williams, who's the executive director of the Oak Park Regional Housing Center. Indeed, she's your classmate from Whitney Young, Jonathan. She was with us yesterday and absolutely brilliant. She wants to help you to save your home. She and this magnificent team that she has at the Oak Park Regional Housing Center. Go to IllinoisHousingHelp.org so that you can find out if you qualify for this program, or call them at 773-887-5187. 773-887-5187, everybody. Dr. Max Wolf, brilliant economist, is joining Jonathan Jackson, congressional candidate, former national spokesman for Rainbow Push, and Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, civil rights lawyer, radio host of WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Wolf, we are really trying to find out what happened on Tuesday in Uvalde, Texas. And now, after this press conference yesterday, which I think was prompted by the questions that have been asked on the ground, there are so many questions about the timeline. And you have parents who are not just contradicting the police, they are saying the police are not telling the truth. They're lying. They're lying. We tried to get them to go into the building. So you just tell me your impressions of all of this.
Sure. So look, like everyone else, I'm waiting to learn and don't know what happened, and I clearly wasn't there, and I'm not an expert, so that should be kept in mind. I think none of us know. I think probably in a situation like this, the people most dangerous to listen to are the people who think they do know. Unless they were there, then it'd be pretty hard. I do think when we spoke about this prior to the revelations of the Thursday press conversation, the story kind of didn't make sense. These things are very chaotic as they unfold, and we have this unusual situation where law enforcement both is one of the main actors in these dramas and also the party that we asked to tell us what happened, and that creates a sort of tense situation, I think. And the truth is, there's a lot of politics in this already, and here's what it looks like. It looks like a legal gun purchase, or several, was made by an individual who hadn't been sufficiently flagged to prevent it. The person committed an act of violence against his guardian, functional guardian, looks like the grandmother, right, who hopefully will survive, but was substantially hurt, right? And then drove somewhere, crashed a vehicle, and wandered around heavily armed with a rifle in front of a school for somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 minutes. And during that period of time, there was a police call, and somebody was informed that this individual had shot this woman, right? And it does seem as though he later entered the school without much resistance and went on to commit the multiple heinous acts he did before being shot. There's a lot of questions because there are a lot of armed people in the school. The reason the politics dovetails in there is the reason you don't want a lot of armed people, despite what some of our elected officials like to tell us, is it's a very tense, very fluid, very chaotic situation when people are screaming in agony and pain, shooting each other, possibly shooting at you. Making sense of it is highly difficult for the most trained and experienced people. For anyone else who's armed in the room, they are far more likely to shoot each other than help the situation, right? Because life and action movies have some factual disagreements here, right? And so more armed people makes for more trouble, and there were a lot of armed people, and there does seem to have been a delay in getting command and control in place, right? And so we see Thursday's police press conference to me, is the police changing the story from the police, and sometimes from the same spokespeople from the Department of Public Safety there in Texas. And that's not per se anyone's fault. These are very fluid situations. But we now have a situation where the agencies that might be subject to critique are also the agencies that will tell us what happened. I think you saw Representative Castro from the local area begin to request a presence from the federal authorities in the form of the FBI. And even with that, I think it'll be a long time, if ever, before we know exactly what happened in terms of the specifics on the ground. Well, maybe we know enough to know that, yet again, we've put the rights of some people to own military-style weapons ahead of the safety of our teachers, our children, and it's again led to a predictable, if unimaginable, tragedy for a lot more families and communities yet again.
What do you think this says? Because you have now you basically have the citizens who are openly contradicting the police. And of course, that helps to ferment bad feelings, maybe unrest down the road. Where do you see this going? Because they are publicly disputing the accounts of the police. They're saying you are not telling the truth. And now we have video coming out backing up the parents' stories. The parents said, you physically restrained some of us. You put some of us in cuffs. There's video of a father being held down on the ground by the police. This is really messy, Dr. Wolf.
For sure. I mean, but there's also a desire to blame people and be angry. And the seeming perpetrator of all this, as far as we know, has already died. And so there's all that anger and all that upset about what happened, very understandably. And accusations tend to get thrown around. And some of them will prove true, and many of them will prove false. And even if there are false accusations by grieving parents who've had their children slaughtered, it's hard to hold it against them, given what they're going through, given a sense of sort of powerlessness and anger and upset, and sense of betrayal. I think what we often see in these cases, and again, don't know, but there are some provisional indication, is that the initial accounts tend to be very heroic and sounding nearly perfect responses from some of the first responders, and messy details later emerge, right? And the messy details cast doubt on not just the initial kind of rosy portrayal, but everything subsequent that's said by the authorities, right? But more than anything else, I think we need to figure out how to prevent this again. Not so much in this town, although sure there too, but just sort of prevent this again at the national level, right? We've already seen some heroic figures and some of the usual heroic suspects come out and reassure their patron donors that they will not think about it as a gun-related issue, but as a door and exit-related issue in the case of Ted Cruz, or as an issue of more children who should be armed. And even though, Representative Jackson doesn't agree with me, I am for prenatal heavy armament. I think people should have guns in utero. And I denounce the anti-gun stance of people who believe you should have to be born to have a firearm. And to me, this seems perfectly in keeping with the Texas culture of life, where you have to have a lot of firearms because your deep belief in the sanctity of life. And I think it's okay to expect a lot from a 11-year-old sexual assault victim, but maybe it's hard to accept so much from an adult male.
Oh my!
I have no problem.
Yeah, Jonathan, you want to respond to arming the unborn?
Okay, Dr. Wolf has nailed it. It's the Texas culture, and so I think we have to go beyond just the individual, because these individuals are now replicating themselves, and they're doing it in increasing frequency. We're talking about 10 mass shootings that are headlines. There are more mass shootings that are happening every day. More than 10 persons shot at a single incident. So you can be an innocent bystander. This goes back to federal legislation and the hypocrisy. I can't get it out of my mind. This person, I have to call him a teen. He's going to be charged as a grown man, but he's 18 years old. This has been on his mind, I'm sure it's 16, 17, waiting for the day to become 18. I was thinking at 16, I can't wait to get driver's license. How many more children are out there just like this? They swore just a few weeks ago, he was 17, and he was eager to get the gun, eager to have more weaponry than the local police department. We also have to think about what does it say about the future. Santita, this is a town of 16,000 people that has a SWAT team. I mean, like, we cannot afford all this policing. We have to de-escalate the violence in our culture, in our society. 45,000 Americans are being killed with handguns. This guy can end up buying an assault rifle that's too young to buy a handgun. I hope it's a sick, it's exhausting, and it's depressing to see. I met a woman last night in the event I had. You start these casual conversations, your name and so forth, and how are you? And I said, any topics you'd like to discuss? She says, yeah, I'd like to know your position on gun violence. And we're talking, it was friendly, it was leisure. She says, I've lost 2 of my children in the last 5 years to gun violence. I'd like to know your thoughts on it. I mean, to the degree that she was pleasant and had a smile on her face and just come out, I mean, something in me just shrunk on the inside. Like, how do you have the strength to be here right now? How do you have the strength to say this? And so many people look normal, but are in such deep pain that I want to confront that on the halls in Congress.
Robert Patillo, I mean, your thoughts about this? I mean, is it the guns? I'm going to ask you, Robert, and then I want everybody else on the panel. Is it the guns or is it us? Or both?
Yeah, it's both. It is particularly, we have to look at the trends. Nearly all of these shootings take place from men under the age of 20. So it seems very reasonable to raise the age to 21 to buy a gun. The same way you can't buy liquor at 18, you can't rent a car at 18, you can't drive for Uber at 18. Well, let's just say that there are certain things you need to be a little bit older, you need to have a little more brain formation, a little more experience, a little bit less emotional before you can do. I think that's a reasonable conversation we can have. I think mental background checks before we give you a deadly weapon are generally a good idea. Criminal background checks to make sure you have been accused of domestic violence or you're not a gang member, for example. Those sorts of things, I think, are reasonable solutions. But nothing's going to get done at all as long as you have a political party which is bought and sold, not by gun owners, but by the gun manufacturing industry. The only way that the gun manufacturers can keep on making money is to make sure that every single man, woman, and child in this country has 10 to 20 guns. And that's their goal. So they don't want any regulation in the slightest. And as I said, as they continue to manufacture more, we're seeing those prices drop just by market forces. And because of that, it's becoming more powerful weaponry, it's becoming more accessible to more people. I'll give you an example. While Dr. Wolf was talking, I got an email saying that green tip armor-piercing ammo is half off right now. So between the time that you start the conversation and end this conversation, I ordered 200 rounds of armor-piercing ammo. It'll be here Tuesday. And that's probably a little bit, probably a little bit too easy to get. I think we can all agree they shouldn't be able to buy armor-piercing ammunition at half price in 10 minutes. Normally, that's $40 case for 20 rounds, $2 per round. Now it's $9 a case because it's on a surplus sale. So whereas before, maybe somebody couldn't pay $2 per bullet to shoot if they were, a disturbed individual, but they can definitely afford 50 cents a round to shoot. So we have to start looking at why exactly we are producing so much unless we are planning for something going on, and something's going to go on if you keep allowing the younger and younger people to get more and more powerful weapons, more and more powerful body armor going forward, and with the continued militarization of America.
Dr. Wolf, I mean, several things are happening. Today, the NRA is having their convention in Texas. What do you make of that? I mean, because you were not invited this year? What do you make of that?
Interpretive jabs about the joys of large capacity magazines, but after what I thought was a pretty good crowd endorsement last year, I was left off the program. Possibly because of my association with the show. I don't hold that against you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, Dr. Wolf doesn't make good sense. You know that. That having been said, I mean, they're going on because the NRA Oh, no, go on.
Issues here? Yeah. I think there's at least two issues here, and we get them confused. It does no service to us. It makes this conversation more intractable, right? So I do think there's a mental health crisis in the United States. I think it was going on a while. I think it got a lot worse during COVID, and I do think that's a real situation. But the mental health crisis means a lot of people in trouble and a lot of misadventures. That turns into firearm deaths is guns, right? Because again, it is fairly simple that nobody else in the world has the kind of gun deaths we do, and nobody else in the world has the kind of guns we do. And in places with more guns, there are more gun deaths. And in places with less guns, there are less gun deaths. And I mean, the statistics aren't even interesting from an analytical perspective at this point, right? So we know more guns will always be more gun deaths, right? And the reason more guns doesn't prevent more gun deaths mathematically is interesting. I never mentioned, so I'll bring it up, I guess, because I'm a statistician. Look, most of the people who die by a gun die by their own hand. So about 55% of all gun deaths every year in the United States, north of 27,000 of them, are people ending their own life with a handgun. So how more guns help you there only works if you think your left hand will shoot the gun out of your right hand if you go into that scenario of depression and sadness with two firearms. That seems unlikely to me. Perhaps it's the statistical background at fault again. So I think the conversation is just kind of something else. But, we know it's something else, even while we talk about this. And I think what it might be is a lot of people are searching for purpose, probably particularly young men. In American society, what makes a young man who's not a man of wealth and means is not making money, because that's closed off to a lot of people because we don't have the social mobility. It's being powerful and using force against other people. And if you have guns at despair and 350 million guns and not so many mental health care providers, if it's easy to get a gun and hard to get help, and you don't see your place in the world, then you will assert your power in the way this society tells young men of limited means they can be powerful, by being on one side of the gun versus the other. And I think that's a deeper problem than just the guns and just the mental health. But I think getting the guns out of people's hands will be enormously helpful. And when you have an epidemic, you have a symptom, you treat the symptom, you don't wait to know the cause, right? If you stagger into a hospital bleeding profusely, they don't have a long talk about all the ways it could have happened. They staple the thing closed and disinfect it, right? And so I think a reasonable gun policy is sort of stapling the wound and disinfecting it. And I think the social debates people bring up about mental health and individual responsibility are valuable. But I think those debates should come after we treat the patient's arterial bleed. And that is guns at this point.
It doesn't seem like we're heading in that direction. I want you all to call me. Well, reach out to me throughout the week, because we're beginning to close into the close of the show today. And I want you to remember, just really think about all that has been said here today. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from the panel. Let me start with you, Attorney Robert Patillo. I don't even know what's next. I mean, this press conference yesterday was more questions than answers. You got a lot of broken hearts. You have Joe Garcia, who died of a broken heart yesterday, having lost his wife on Tuesday. There's just, and we're still not through Buffalo. Don't forget Buffalo, everybody. I mean, we've got a lot of fatigue, but Robert, we can't forget Buffalo.
Absolutely, and I think we have to walk and chew gum with this one. We have to start looking at the federal level that the Republican Party has literally said they were willing to do absolutely nothing when it comes to gun violence, because they're bought and paid for by gun manufacturers, not by gun owners, by gun manufacturers, and there's a difference there. So we're going to need 12 senators come this fall in order to get anything done. So there's that component of it. At the same time, on the state and local level, we have to start looking at what policy can be put in place to make sure that our police officers can actually meet the threats that are facing them right now. If you listen to any rap song now, they don't talk about their Glock, they don't talk about their 9, they talk about their chopper. what they're talking about are AK-47s, mini Dracos, 7.62 by 39 ammunition, and 30 round magazines. That's what police officers are meeting in the street today, and sending them out there with a 9mm Glock 17 or Glock 19. They might want them out there with a Super Soaker compared to what they're actually fighting against in the street. And also, we have to consider what we're doing to defend ourselves and looking and meeting the current threats which are against us. Previously, most people were going to be very safe walking around with a 9mm handgun or even a 380, something like that for self-defense. You might have to upgrade to a 5.7 by 28, something that actually has the stopping power to defeat the armor that some of these individuals are walking around with now, and also consider getting firearms training and defense classes, as well as putting defensive Kevlar in your children's backpacks when you send them to school. I know we don't want to live in that world, but that's the world that we live in. And making sure that we are doing everything necessary to defend ourselves. So it's a multi-layered aspect that we have to take care of. But at this point is how we have to live in the America that we live in, not the one that we imagine we live in.
I only have I only have like 3 minutes left. Let me give 1 minute to you, Jonathan, and then, Dr. Wolf can close us out. Jonathan?
I am alarmed at the age of these shooters. I would say this is the new era. I call these the spiritual godchildren of Kyle Rittenhouse. These young men are teenagers, be it in New York State, be it in Texas, be it in Chicago and Milwaukee, persons that have had these mass shootings. It's guns. I want to be clear. Because if you have mental illness challenges, be it depression, schizophrenia, and so forth, do not do these sort of things. They do it when they have access to guns. We have to get guns out of the citizens' hands, these high-powered automatic rifles. So I would think we should stay focused on what the key problem is, the access to guns. You can still have these mental challenges, but if you don't have access to guns, you will not do mass shootings.
You got it, Dr. Wolf. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, I know this won't change the debate, but maybe ammunition for people who want to think it through statistically. Armed citizens do not, have not, and probably will not prevent these type of attacks. So that is a false flag misinformation campaign. Doesn't work. Feels like it might, doesn't. We have the data. Okay, right now in America, there are about 520 guns for every mental health care professional. So if you are out there saying it's mental health care, not guns, what are you doing to up the ratio of mental health care providers to guns? Because last time I checked, it's easier to have fewer guns than train more mental health care professionals. But I'm interested in all the proposals, I guess. We all should be. Right? And then we have to ask the deeper question, which is, how many people can a society have with nothing to lose? And I think that might be the bigger issue here, right? If you have a lot of people with nothing to lose, you have almost no way to control their behavior. Right? And so the real solutions here are giving people a little bit more of a sense of hope, a little bit more of a sense of a path forward, right? And in the meantime, if we're going to talk about mental health and guns, they're both reasonable conversations. Let's discuss how we get the ratio up from 520 guns per mental health care professional, and that we can get more mental health care professionals or we can get less guns. Just being fiscally responsible, I have a feeling that gun reduction is going to work better, but I'm happy to hear all the solutions, right? And I think the other thing to do is, I think we need to be honest about this damage. So while I absolutely agree we're not over Buffalo, we're not over Newtown.
No.
If this is your life, if this is your kid, if this is your family, this is forever. These scars are probably born by the children you have who weren't alive when these incidences took place. The trauma people hold from these events, it doesn't come and go like the news cycle. It lasts and forms them and those who flow from them.
Everybody, pay heed to these words. They're wise, and I just thank you, Dr. Wolf. Thank you for all that you offer. I thank you, of course, Attorney Robert Patillo, WAOK. Listen to him on Sunday, 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Jonathan Jackson, you know I love you. I love all you guys, and I'm wishing you so much as you run for Congress, and Attorney C.K. Hoffler and LaTanya Ruffin and Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. And thank you, Paul, for a great show, everybody. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Remember, this was a holiday founded by Black people. What did they do? People who've been newly freed. They saw that white soldiers, Union soldiers, had just been dumped in graves disrespectfully. They dug them up and they gave them a proper burial and proper homegoing. Love, respect. That is what we need. Compassion for one another. Empathy, sympathy. God bless you, everybody. Let's get well together. I love you. Have a great holiday weekend. Be blessed. I love you guys. Oh, well, I'll speak with you during the holiday. And thank you for my picture. You know, I've already downloaded it. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, kind of an amusing one.
Oh, no, I've already downloaded it. I went and got some photo paper.
We had talked earlier too, right?
Uh-huh.
We had talked earlier. I think the story is very much like, it's still kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think the sort of timeline, the story is going to continue to evolve. I know we had talked even before the Thursday press conference, but I think the sort of timeline of the story seems very fluid now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, to put it colloquially, they now have a mess. They now have a mess because they've been caught in lies. And now there's the videotape that's coming out of parents arguing with the law enforcement. It's awful. And then you have the stories about different law enforcement officers who went into the schools while they were hearing the shots so they could get their children out. It's awful. So on the ground, while people are grieving, you have this additional pain and a growing mistrust and distrust. So it's just a lot. Paul, you're right. So this is not the time when you need to have a break in the community. You don't need that now. But that's precisely what you have. It's precisely what you have. You know, but quite frankly, to be fair, you caught this like on the first day. You said something about this isn't right. And I said, well, I agree. I just, I'm so traumatized by all of this. But I'm, asking all these questions too. Yeah. It's like every day.
After school, I usually take my daughter, and she's like about this age, right? Mm-hmm. She's about to be in kindergarten, to the playground over by our house. And it's all people with kids that age, more or less, right? It's not like a playground with older kids generally. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's talking about this. And these are people who, I see for the last 2-3 years, and, they don't talk much about current events and policy stuff. They're not necessarily, a lot of them are tech workers, not necessarily all that interested in this stuff as general rule. But yeah, everybody who's a parent is sitting around in some kind of, is this going to be me one day? And how did this happen? And why does it keep happening? Right? And I watch, because of where we live and who's around the schools, I'd say maybe 60% of the people here weren't, so the kids might be with the parents weren't, or from somewhere else in the world. No, it's a pretty diverse sample all over the world. But they're really trying to figure out how dangerous it is for them to be raising a kid in the U.S. And it's amazing. And they're really struggling with it, right? Yeah.
Please. I mean, look, what did Robert just say? You need to buy a Kevlar vest for your child? He was serious. Robert, are you still there? He might be gone now. He said, no, get a Kevlar vest. That should be in your child's backpack too. I said, as way out there as it sounds, he's about right. And that is scary. It's scary. And it's horrifying.
Yeah, even if you have a vest, you can still get shot, right? So I mean, there's also social. There's also it's very American and understandable. He's probably right, no doubt more knowledgeable of many of these issues than I, but individual solutions to social problems is something we always try to do out. Lots of valiant effort, it doesn't succeed that often.
No.
And we love trying to have an individual solution to a social problem. By all means, survive and do what you got to do. I'm not here to judge you. I mean, who knows what I'll be doing in an hour, right? I don't do that. So just ask anyone else to. But the point is, other thing that I think we get wrong in these debates as a country, this is not about this troubled kid. I mean, clearly very troubled young man, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was just him, fine. This happened once every 7 years, fine. You know, like the guy's got a wiring problem upstairs. It's horrible. You know, it's a 1 in a million bad, you know, wrong day, wrong time. Luck of the draw, like the lightning strike, you know. So we're going to end up having about 2 multi-person shooting sprees a week this year.
Yeah.
We had almost that many last year. So at that point, it's not anomalous, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The other way,
Yeah.
There's 50,000 handgun deaths a year. It's, you know, 4,000 a month. It means every 10 days, it's a 9/11.
This is where we are right now. We're here.
Yeah.
We're here.
We were able to identify 9/11 at the price as we should have, right? But how do we miss 2 9/11s a month in handgun deaths? It's a spoiled frog, right? The sitting in hot water, slowly cooking, maybe, but it's still 2 9/11s, 2 to 3 9/11s a month.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is what we've got. I mean, come on. You got to go. You got to get DNA. I mean, look, it just breaks my heart that these parents had to present their DNA because their children's bodies have been destroyed. I mean, come on, you guys. And then Ted Cruz won't answer a question. No.
He might mostly be upset that he had to come back from Cancun.
Hey, how about that? But that's what
Well, they have a gun problem there too. Maybe it is Ted Cruz.
You know what? Shut up. I'm gonna take you.
No, I'm just thinking out loud here.
I'm going to get off Facebook now so that I can continue to talk to you. Oh,
I've never met him.
oh
I've done
my
it against him personally.
No, I mean,
The story, sort of. Yeah, I mean, like, why do you go as far as to manufacture outrage for doing like a paid song and dance routine?
no.
That's usually when I think, wow, this is something unusual going on here.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like, are you for real?
I respect you as a New Yorker, right? This is the town where you back into someone, say they rear-ended you, and work yourself up into a fury. I can respect the game like that, but not sure if God's work.
Did you say game, peeps? What game? I got it. But this is horrible. This is horrible, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. You know, I mean, and I have friends who are now talking about homeschooling their children. They're like, you know what? Even in these, you know, and some of them have kids at really elite schools, and they're like, you know what? No, I'm not going to. I can't handle it. You know, one of my girlfriends called me. She said, you know what? I can't. She said, she has not sent her kids back to school this week. She said, no way, I can't. I just emotionally. She said, there's been enough going on. I can't do this right now. And she did not send her kids back to school.
Not to schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the week before is the grocery store. These are the most everyday things human beings do, right?
Yeah.
Go to the store, buy some milk, right?
Oh, yeah.
Bread, go to school, right? I mean, you can't start crossing all these things off the list, right? Like, I'm never going to go to the store, I'm never going to go to school, I'm
Yeah.
never going to go to a mall, I'm never going to go to a movie theater.
No.
Right? Start to look at these things happen. They happen everywhere.
And they're happening everywhere, and they're happening all the time. And that's what is like this is crazy. It's really crazy. Really, really, really crazy. It's not right. But oh, Max, I love you. What am I gonna say?
Sorry to be talking about such a somber subject.
Oh.
This week. Like, yeah, I think this is one of those things that floats around in all of our heads, collectively, individually, and sort of eats away at you, right? It's hard to look at something like this and feel like tomorrow's a new day and we're going to get this right.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh. You know, because that's the thing. Because I think about Naomi Judd. You know, and she had called her daughter and said, "Come on over. Can you come and sit with me?" And her daughter, you know, the actress Ashley, came on because they have 3 houses on their property. And she came on over to be with her mom. She went downstairs to you know, they had a cousin or something. I think it was a cousin who was dropping by. Just as she went downstairs, her mother kills herself. And I just said, you know, oh my gosh, you know, it's too much. It's just too much, you know, and that's what hurts.
That's part of the story too, right? People under enough strain, you know,
Yeah.
people snap.
Yeah, I mean, but her mother had been very honest about her mental health struggles, but you know, it's like, wow, it just.
But even that's a lot more understandable than hurting someone else.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to end your own life, that's obviously a painful but a very personal decision. But once you're in school shooting someone else's kids, that's not about your own life anymore, right?
Well, and that's where it's not mental illness. I mean, the fact is, mentally ill people hurt themselves. I mean, that's just a fact. Angry people hurt other people. And we've got to look at what is going on with our children. You know, something is, you know, there's a lot of anger out here. You can't make all these people mentally ill. Huh? All these folks are, yeah. These folks a lot of these folks are not mentally ill, they're angry. And they're poorly socialized. Yeah.
Yeah, also our society throws away a lot of people, and they don't just like off and die,
Yeah.
right? In New York, it's very clear that we have a large cast-off population.
Yeah.
A fair number of whom are probably suffering from mental health issues, but you know, obviously the vast majority of people with mental health issues don't hurt anyone other than maybe themselves, right? And by the way, hurting yourself is not a market cornered by the mentally ill. It's a American pastime.
That's right.
That are and that are not. That's it. Sorry.
Right? I mean, you know, so it's like, come on.
Yeah, I think that's good.
But no, we need to be honest about the cultural rot, the social and spiritual rot. I mean, Dr. King talked about this more than 50 years ago. And I know I reference him a lot, but you know, it's just he's loomed so large in the life of my family. And it's like, you know, come on. You know, the militarism, the materialism, you know, the emptiness spiritually. This is what we're seeing. And we cannot go on like this. We just can't. We literally can't. We are going to be extinct. Anytime Lamont said, "Oh no,"
That's right.
yeah. You know, I mean, Lamont had it right. They said, "Look, you guys, you all are exceptional, all right." Shit. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So, I love you all, everybody. I'm out of here. I can't take any more. I just